Bop, bop.
Tearing down for what?
Bop, bop, bop. There we go. All right, it is 5 o'clock. Please silence the music or put in headphones or something, Troy. Because, yeah.
We'll get in trouble.
Yeah, you cannot have sound playing in the background, especially music. All right.
Ding, ding.
All right, ready, guys? All right, audio's coming on.
Hello there.
I think it may have already been on. I think the audio's actually been on. The audio is on. So let's do this. Bloop. Okay. We are live and you are standing in the camera.
Oh, hey, how you doing?
Welcome to Troy.
Camera right there.
Sorry guys. Hey, welcome to OnSet. I'm Daniel Norton. I'm here today with the amazing Nolan. Troy's over here making sure we look good. I always look good.
Me, no.
And I don't know, hopefully you can hear us. Let me know. I'm flying solo here. You're already on. Yep, we're already on. Good. So hopefully we didn't say anything too bad. If screwing up the audio is the worst thing we do today, that'll be good. All right, cool. So we're good. We're flying here. We're going to do some portraits with Speedlights. Hopefully Seth will join us in a little bit. But until then, I got computer, iPad.
You got it.
Pow, we got this under control. So we're going to make some different portraits. We're going to talk about it. I saw one of the very first questions here in the chat was, can we use a Speedlight as our main light? Yes, that's actually where we're going to start. The thing is first of all, let's start with the basics because I'm a basic kind of guy. People always say, hey Daniel, you're basic. I take that as a compliment. All right, so Speedlight is just another word for small flash. Typically, small flash that goes onto your camera or has the ability to go onto your camera, that's going to have some kind of a shoe on it. This kind of flash, while it is very tiny, is very powerful compared to, let's say, the room lights here, right? What we're going to do with the small flash is we're going to be able to take control. Even though it's little, we can take it with us any way we want. When we walk into a space like this, we don't have to use the light in here. That doesn't mean that we can't use the light in here. It means that we can decide what light we want to use. Lighting is all about control. All the cameras these days, like in my day, we didn't have these things. But all the cameras these days are really good in low light. You can go to gazillion trillion ISO. Oh, I don't know. Lighting is not about exposure anymore. Used to be when we were using film back in the day. You needed a lot of light. Now it's really about control, shaping, creating what you want, right? So we want to use flash, not because we need necessarily a lot of power. We want to use flash because we want to get rid of the light in space. We don't want to have to work in a completely dark room, right? So that's going to allow us to do this. This thing's really small. If it's in my bag, I can take it with me anywhere I go. I usually suggest that a small flash is the first flash that you work with because you'll learn a lot with it and you can do a lot. We're going to do a lot. We will do a lot today. So without further ado, that's only some ado. You have to have some ado, just not any further. All right, let's see. We got audio and video on. Sorry, guys. Hopefully, we didn't do any copyright violations with the music because we were rocking out. We were disco dancing before, right? So, anyways. All right. See, we're live on YouTube, so they can't kill me here. Of course, once this thing cuts, we never know. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're going to start very basic. And then we'll build up, ask questions as you go. I will stop periodically to look at the questions. And we will, back in the day, you could get paid in exposures. Yes, that's true. All right. All right, so I'm going to put this one away for a second. We are going to use multiple flashes eventually because one of the cool things about Speedlights, so many of these flashes now, big flashes, studio flashes, have built-in radio receivers and stuff, but the Speedlights were kind of some of the first ones that had stuff built in that would allow you to just kind of control them remotely. So that's kind of where the origin of all that kind of remote flash with control came from. So we're going to use what's called TTL or through the lens metering when we work here, but we'll also mess a little bit with manual. But before we do anything, I said all that about control, but hey, people like to see it, right? You can say anything you want, but the people want to see it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make an exposure in this space with no flash at all to show you guys kind of what the room looks like, right? But what it'll look like at the settings that we have. And then we're going to add some flash and it will look pretty bad. Because pro tip here, get out your notebooks, never take a great shot right away. You always want to build up to it. Even if you can get the great shot right away, you want to, because people will be like, I paid for that if you get it right away, right? You never get you got to build up to it. Be like, oh, I got to work on this, so difficult. And then when you get it, they're going to be like, oh, impressive. Yeah, pro tip. Pro tip. All right, let's see what we got here while they're touching up. Florida, hey. Florida, Florida, hey, I just said that. Photography is really painting with light. Indeed. TTL for the starting point, my manual from there. Well, for portrait, yes. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Good afternoon, beautiful people. They must be talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's do this. Okay, so I don't even have to worry too much that Troy's there because I'm setting my camera at an exposure that none of the light in the space will really affect my shot. What that exposure is going to be, it really depends on where you are, right? So, but there are some basics. We're gonna set it at the maximum shutter speed that we sync with the flash. There is such a thing as high speed sync. We're not gonna talk about that today. That's for the advanced flash class. Plus, I feel like people use it way more than they need to. And rant before it starts. No high speed sync. Maximum shutter speed that the flash normally syncs at. Lowest ISO within the normal range. That way we get the maximum kind of, the maximum image quality out of our sensor. Yes, we could go to 800 ISO, it still looks good, but 100 is gonna look better. So 100 ISO, 200th of a second. I'm gonna set my aperture as such that when I look at the back of the screen, because I'm using a mirrorless camera here, it looks black. I'm at 5.6 because, you know, that's where the pros put it. And we'll take a shot. I'm over here in capture 1. Let's see if I can do this. That did nothing. Hold on. I think this is what I want to do. Nope. Okay, what's happening? We'll just do this quickly. And then, there we go. All right, let's go back here. Boop, sorry guys. We'll work this out. There we go. Boom. That's the one we want. Now I'm really small. And you can see that this frame here is completely dark. This is a dark frame because the exposure is such that none of the light in the space is affecting the shot. Just in case you think that's not the case, I'm going to jump over here to my exposure correction area in Capture 1. I'm going to grab my exposure and I'm going to slide it over until I start to see Nurlan. In this case, we're going to see the background before we see her because all the light's mostly coming from behind her. And we're looking at 2.5 stops before we see anything. That is basically setting our shadow density, right? So 2.5 stops below our exposure that whatever we shoot with the flash, we will start to get a little detail in the shadow, which is good, right? We want to be able to have some shadow that we can pull back. What we don't want is that to be like only like 1 stop, because if it's that far and you have to start messing around in post, you're going to get some of the ambient light, and these are ugly LEDs. That's the brand, actually. They're called ugly LEDs. No, they're not. They're called excellent quality daylight garbage, right? LEDs hanging in the ceiling, garbage. We want good quality light. Okay, so that being said, let's just show what happens now. We can just take the flash and turn it on because, you know, I just paid $1,000 for this flash. I didn't really, they gave it to me. So, no, I wish. All right, so I'm going to put it in TTL using the little buttons in the back here. Let's see. Air on. Air group, oh, I'm in D. Okay, so air group A. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the A group. I'm going to put it in TTL, and we're going to make a shot. Now, what it should do, in theory, is it should create. Oh, look at that. That's kind of cool, right? If you just head right to that, it's terrible, right? She's exposed properly, more or less, right? Not bad. Actually, Troy likes it. We're good. No, no. We're done. Yeah, this is hard light, right? It's basically a hard, punchy light. It's the flashes on the camera. I didn't even focus it. You know, and basically what we're looking at is she's properly exposed because the flash is using what's called TTL, or through the lens metering. It's using the meter in the camera to make an exposure on her. That can be cool for some stuff. You want that kind of punchy, you know, edgy, fashiony feel or whatever. That can be cool. We're going to make portraits today, and most people don't want that kind of light for a portrait. I mean, I only use the finest quality subjects for my portraits, so. But we're going to want to make the light a little bit more gentle. So the way we do that usually is we're going to try to make it a little bit softer, And hardness and softness of the light is determined by the size relative to the subject. So my subject is Nurlan. We want to make the light bigger than Nurlan. This light is smaller than Nurlan. It's like, right? So, right? Well, hold on, let me do this. Scale, right? So this light is smaller than Nurlan. However, it's getting bigger. It's getting bigger. Boom, it's huge, right? Because distance makes a difference. If we get the light closer to her, it will be bigger. There's no way this is going to be big enough that, let's say it's bigger than her head, though. So we're going to have to do something to make it larger. And the simplest way to do that is going to be to bounce it. And everybody that read that book in 1975 on photography, they're going to be like, bounce it off the ceiling, Daniel. Shame, shame, shame. All right, we can take our light and we can bounce it off the ceiling, and it's going to make it larger. That is the truth. I also zoomed in a little bit here. Okay, terrible. Why don't we want to bounce it off the ceiling even though it made it softer? Part of the reason is because we're expending tons and tons of light. Also, it's going to have a hard time making the exposure, but look at where all the shadows is. There's no light in her eyes. It's very kind of, nope, you can't see anything because I haven't switched it. So there's no light in her eyes. It's very dead, right? Even if we crank up the exposure to get it properly, it's going to be a very dead shot. We want to get some light to shape her face. We don't want overhead light for this. So just so I can show you, because I know it's underexposed, people are like, no, that's great, except it's underexposed. Now we're going to do what people always talk about. We're going to switch to manual. And we're going to just crank this thing up so we get a better exposure. Right? And we can see that, again, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's barely better than a snapshot. And I'm in a professional studio. See how I said that? That's on my card. Daniel Norton, professional. It doesn't say that on my card. It used to. So yeah, it's just not a good direction for the light. Now, again, this is not terrible because I'm in a studio with a white ceiling and I have white floors, so it's bouncing up to fill in. But imagine that this here is very, very much overhead light. Can we work with this? Sure. What can we do? We can make the light not overhead by having the subject move their face, right? You could bring your chin up, let's say, like a lot, yeah. That's going to help, right? Because now the light's coming in the right direction. But even with that, we can see that it's still very shadowy under her eyes. It's just not going to be what we want, right? It's close. Like overhead light, kind of frontal light like that can be nice for a beauty shot when we have control, and we'll get there in a second. But let's start like this and let's make it a little bit nicer. How can we make the light bigger? Well, over in Bushwick, we have a factory where we make these. That's in Brooklyn, right? Bushwick? Yeah, okay, yeah. So, I lived in Queens, All right, so these reflectors are artisanal, finely crafted, out of the finest foam board. And what we're gonna do is, right, this is big, right? Even from this distance compared, right, look, I'm blocking it on. Woo. See, even from that distance. So we're gonna make the light bigger by bouncing it off of this board. And I'm gonna leave the flash on the camera. I'm actually going to turn it a little bit backwards because I don't want the hard edge of the flash to hit her. And it's going to come up like this, boop, it's going to go forward, and this should be a little bit better because I can shape it. Here we go. Let me get a focus. Good. All right. Oh, a little bright because I have it in manual. But now we're getting closer though. What's that? She's like, oh, light's bright. Okay, let me switch back to TTL for me. There we go. All right, we're gonna go like this. Let's make this thing a little bit punchier. There we go. Now we got a nicer light, right? Look at how creamy that light is. These Brooklyn reflectors can be had for only $300. Send a self-addressed stamped envelope. There's a guy with a van in Bushwick. When you see this guy with the van in Bushwick, just tell him I sent you. He'll take care of you. Cash only. Okay, but see what we're doing here? We're making the light bigger, right? So this is going to be a nicer looking shot than even our punchy light there. which was the same thing, but it's just a matter of getting the right exposure. Here's the one. There we go. Let's go like this. There we go. So we can see that overhead, even though this is technically bigger in a sense, right, because we're using the ceiling, this gives us shape because we want to shape our light. All right, so let's see if anyways. There we go. Finally crafted. Brooklyn reflector. All right. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Missed the direct on-camera flash, but I'm sure you know them. Yep, exactly. Cool. Looking for any questions. All right, we're keeping going. Let me know if you guys have any questions. All right, so that's cool, right? We can do that. I always start this way because I want to make it clear that like you don't need to buy lots and lots of gear to make a nice shot. You just have to understand light. If we want to make the light softer, more gentle for a portrait, we can make it larger, we can bounce it off something. But bouncing it off the ceiling doesn't work because the ceiling is directly above her. We want to have some control, right? I could bounce it sideways if I want to do like a more of a Rembrandt feel. I won't be able to do exactly that, but I can get a little, right? And then we can get a little bit of shape, right? So I can also do that, and that also shapes the light. A little bit darker, right? I personally, for female subjects, I like more of a central shot. Oh, I see what's happening. We're getting two pictures because I'm shooting JPEG and RAW, I think. Let's see. I'm going to set up my view to hide JPEGs. There we go. All right. I was wondering why there was two pictures coming up every time. There we go. Simple enough. I like a more central light, like I said, for a female subject, but you could definitely do that to get some control. We can also move it closer to her, like that. These flash heads generally zoom, so I'll zoom the head tighter. And this one actually has a modeling light, so I can kick the modeling light on and I can actually see my angle, and bang, I can get more of a directional shot. Right now we're getting some light that's very much being crafted, right? It's not just the light in the space, right? We can create that. But let's look at using some actual modifiers. One of the nicest things we can do besides making the light soft is we can make it diffuse. So when you diffuse a light, so you got, let's do a little, this is where I switched the screen, I forgot to put it back. We've got two things, well, there's many things, but two main things. We've got hard and soft, which has to do with the size of the light source. That's going to control your transition, your shadow transition. A hard light transitions really quickly to shadow, a soft light transitions slowly, right? Smoother, so it's going to be nicer when you want to cover up any imperfections, whatever. Specular versus diffuse has to do with your highlights, right? If you want to make it so it's not so punchy in the highlights, you'll diffuse your light. Now, oftentimes when you're diffusing your light, you're also making it larger, which is why sometimes people think that when you diffuse the light, it makes it soft. In this case, it will, because this is big, right? But if I just took a little piece of diffusion and stuck it in front of the lens of the flash, it would diffuse the light without making it softer. So those two things are not always the same, but just consider that when you're diffusing light, oftentimes you are making it larger, which is what I'm going to do here. This is a Lastolite reflector slash diffuser. This one's a white diffuser. And let's see what we can do here. So what I'm going to do here is, I could use it to bounce light like I just did, but I think instead I'm going to take the diffuser and I'm going to actually put my light up here so it kind of kicks across it and shoots. So let's see. Yeah, that should make it soft and diffuse. There we go. Exposure's a little bit wonky, so I'm going to give myself a little extra exposure. Actually, I'll do it. I'm just going to switch to manual. That was 8.9. I'm going to give myself about half a stop. See, Nerline knows the shots are going to start getting better, so she's like getting her hair better. Yeah. Okay, now we're getting into a softer light, right? Softer and more diffuse. I suppose I should look to the camera so they're in focus. I'm also going to move a little closer because I feel like I'm giving a lot of space around you for some reason. And I'm going to switch my focus back to automatic. That way currently I had my focus set on real tight because I was doing a different project. So I'm going to set it on to the eye focus so that even when I'm not looking through the camera, we should get a good shot. I'm at 70 millimeters. I'm using the Nikon 24-70 lens, which is kind of my most common lens for this kind of thing. I'm just going to throw a softbox on your Speedlight and you're good to go. Well, awesome. That can definitely work. But just throwing something you buy onto something is going to make you exactly what somebody else is, right? Every photographer that starts off buys a little softbox for their Speedlight, and they're like, oh, I have a softbox for my Speedlight. Understanding how light works is going to allow you to shape the light and craft it to what you want. We will put a softbox on there eventually, but let's start like this so we understand how light works. Let's see. That's right. 2 lights. Yeah, we definitely get there. Exactly. When you start messing, when you have reflectors already, because remember that most people, when they start, before they start buying lights, they're going to have things like reflectors, right? So these are useful to have. You don't just throw them away when you move on to lights. So we've got this now. We have a better exposure. I'm going to switch again back to TTL because I moved the light closer, because remember the light's on top of the camera. There we go. And now we're creating, again, with a single Speedlight. Remember, the Speedlight is on my camera. This is very important because I think this is something that people don't fully take in. If I go back to the softbox thing, if I got a little softbox and I put it on my camera, what I would get is a very, very direct flash in their face. By taking this, exactly, by taking this at an angle, I'm actually scooping the light up and bringing it across her. Okay, this is the reason why this is different than just putting a softbox on there. This is why there's a million different tools in photography. If it was just buy a softbox and do it, we wouldn't have all these lessons, right? Or maybe we did. Maybe we would. They would all just be use a softbox. Okay, there we go. And this is going to give us some versatility. It's a nice, soft, pretty light, making her extra, extra beautiful. And if you really want to get fancy, because since I have this Brooklyn reflector that I spent $300 for, I can make Nylon hold it, because she likes to do that. Okay, and then I'll go like this. And here I am with a full studio set up. And again, I have not taken the softbox off my camera, and I'm getting a nice, clean, glamorous snap, snap. You almost want to do a dance.
No.
Right? And now we're creating a studio, more of a studio style portrait. Okay. Okay. Let's see, what else? Any questions here? Hello, everyone. So here we go. Now we're into this a little bit. We're 23 minutes in. No, one hasn't killed me yet. And now let's get down to the meat of it. Okay, so now we understand, right? This was the very first question to somebody that, I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. The very first question in the chat was, can I use a Speedlight as my main light? Not only are we using the Speedlight as the main light, we are also keeping it on the camera and doing that. You know, usually when people say the first rule to getting good shots with the Speedlight is take it off the camera. Sometimes you can't do that. If you're running around shooting events, you can't always just take the flash off the camera. But I could do it in an event like this very easily and just hold the camera in my hand and hold the thing and bang, bang, bang. I'm making excellent, beautiful portraits and not bouncing off some weirdly colored wall or anything else. So you don't need to get it off the camera, but we will though. What Speedlight am I using? This is the Profoto. This one's the A10, I think. Yeah. They started taking the names off of them. I don't know why. Like, how am I supposed to shill? No, I think this is the A10. I have a bunch of A1s and I have an A10 as well. But again, this is we'll call it a premium. This is a premium Speedlight. You don't need to have the most expensive flash. The reason why I use this light is because many reasons, which I talk about a lot, but this is the flash I have. If you have a flash, you buy the most inexpensive flash point, $50, $60 flash, you can get similar shots. You know, there's gonna be reasons that this is better, but worry about technique. Technique's the most important here that we need to think about. So we've got nice clean light. Again, we can do all this stuff. Let's start thinking about taking the flash off the camera. Okay, so there's lots of different modifiers, and one of the other questions I get a lot is, what is the largest size softbox I should put on Speedlight? That really comes down to, what you're shooting and where you're shooting it, right? If I'm in a space that I can completely black out and I only need to shoot at 2.8 aperture, then I'm fine with using a larger box. But remember, the larger the box is, the more light that's going to need to fill it. So if you are going to use a large box with Speedlights, you might find yourself in a situation where you're only getting an f2.8 out of it or something like that. And you might say, well, that's fine, but if I'm in this room and I shot at 2.8, you'd see the room, right? So that's important. You need to be in a space that you can control if you're going to use large boxes with Speedlights. You can do it though, of course, and I have some videos where I've done it, where I've used a 3-foot octa. But let's start with something that I think is more practical. This is the Chimera extra small, which is 12 by 16 inches, however many centimeters that is, I don't know. They make these in Colorado in somebody's basement. Actually, I don't know if it's in their basement. I always say that. It could very well be like in their living room or something. But no, that's the truth. I'm actually not even making that up. They really make all the people that sew the Chimera softboxes, they're all in Colorado and they work out of their homes. Pretty cool, right? All right, so we're going to take one of these lights. We'll take this one. And this is it. Nope, of course I took the one that couldn't do it. We'll take this one. Without this has on it, I guess I should bring it over there. So this has got a little, there's lots of different ways to do this. This has got a little mount that Profoto sells. And what it allows you to do is, again, because I have a Profoto light, it allows you to mount any Profoto accessory, including hard reflectors like beauty dishes, which we'll use in a minute, onto one of these small flashes. So I'm just going to use this. It goes onto a light stand. And you can see here that this is just a regular softbox like I might put on my regular Profoto light. And I can stick it on here just like this. Just like, I feel like Ron Popeil. Right, Ron Popeil? Set it and forget it. Is that what the rotisserie? Was that him or was that Billy Mays? That was with the beard, right? Yeah. But Popeil's like the first one, right? He's like the... No, Lan doesn't know. She's just a child.
I know ShamWow.
ShamWow. She knows the ShamWow. All right, so again, even though this light is actually smaller than the other one, we're going to be able to get it in closer because now I'm putting on a light stand. So I'm going to get it in nice and close in a beauty position. Typically, I'm going to want, when shooting a female subject or doing a beauty type shot, I'm going to want to put my light kind of centered on them. And when you're putting the light this close to somebody, you want to be careful not to drop it on them, but you know, if you do, it is a softbox, so it's going to be soft. I had to do the softbox joke. It's part of my thing.
Your shtick.
It's part of my shtick. All right, this is in the A group. All right, so I'm going to put this actually in the B group because I put the other one in the A group. So I'm going to move this to the B group. Again, you've got groups. I suppose I should explain this. I'll take this out of your face first. You've typically got groups and channels when you're dealing with small flashes or any kind of remotes, really. Your groups are going to be the different flashes you use. Like I might have A, B, C groups for my flashes, right? But your channels are going to be like you've got multiple photographers working in the same space. So all my lights are on the same. Wow, a lot of lights coming in. The sun is setting. So yeah, we've got the flashes all set on channel 3 in my case, and I'm going to put this one in group A. Let's see, any questions before I do this? Different flash, could be less powerful, maybe inconsistent, exactly. How much power do I lose when going outside? Okay, so you don't lose power by going outside, but what happens is you need more power, right? Because the sun is bright. So the more light that you have to overcome, the more power you need in your flash. Typically, if you're using a small flash outside, I wouldn't lean towards using it as my main source. I'd probably use it as like a fill light, that kind of thing, right? So consider all those things when you're picking your flashes and what you're going to do. So yeah, like you might go outside, let's say the sun's at the end of the day, you might use the sun as like a bright hair light and then just like fill in a little bit on the front, or you might put them in the shade. So there's lots of different ways that you can do that outside. And you definitely don't want to use a large softbox outside with a small flash. Okay. As far as high-speed sync, I would not. The thing with high-speed sync is this. The reason why you want high-speed sync is when you need to have a fast shutter speed and a very closed down, very opened up, I should say, aperture. So you want to shoot at 2.8, but it's bright out, right? Because if I go outside, if we do the sunny 16 rule, as they call it, if I'm shooting at 100 ISO, usually the exposure is going to be around 125th of a second at f16. That's the exposure of the sun, right? So if I start shooting at f2.8, I'm going to have a much, much faster shutter speed than the 200 that's limited here. And that's what high-speed sync is about. There are downsides to it, and again, we talk about that in the advanced flash class, so I'm not going to go into it too much. I think it's, unfortunately, when you see people talking about it a lot, it's very gimmicky. So know that people that rely on high-speed sync as their gimmick, it's really, that's all it is. Which is really nothing. So sorry to the people that do that, but that's the fact of the matter.
Shots fired.
Wow. I was told. Yes, exactly. If your entire process is a technique that's built into the camera, then it's really not a thing. All right. I mean, without Seth there, I have to be the one that's talking crap. All right, so we'll do high-speed sync at some point, though, but not right this second. Cool. And you lose power. Yeah, you do lose power, but it's all relative, right? So basically, what people think with high-speed sync is that they can go, well, I only need 2.8, but I can normally get f16 on my flash. That means it's going to be using less power, but in fact, it uses more power, or the same at the very least. All right, so we've got the flash here. We've got this guy. I'm going to take this guy, and I'm going to put it in group D because I don't want to use. I'm going to turn the. You can set these, the flash, this is typical of most Speedlight systems, you can set it to only transmit, right? So now when I'm using it, it's going to fire the flash, but it's not going to fire itself. Like it's not firing here, you can see. Well, you probably can't see in the video because videos. All right. Right, it's not firing. Let me just make sure it's, oh, it actually is firing. Apparently I did not set it correctly. Give me 1 second to set it. This is in D, transmit only. Air channel, air, off. I've turned head off. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to go to air. Oh, I see I did. All right. Head off. Air on. Transmit only. Okay. Actually, let me deal with this sun too for a second, guys. Oh, okay, no, that's not too bad. I'm just taking a shot without the flash to see how much light we're getting. That's not too bad. She's still mostly a silhouette. All right. So let's set this thing up. That guy's in group A. And this guy, I'll just put it in group B for now because I might actually use this as a fill light. It's on channel 3. Air is on. Bluetooth off. Head on. Okay. And then I'm going to go here to B. And I'm going to turn it off. So now, I should. Did that one turn off as well? Sorry, guys. Look at how simple it is. As soon as you get it up in the air, right? Is what it is.
Wait, there's no one.
Oh, that's in B, that's why. User error, as usual. All right, here we go. All right, I'm going to put this into air group A. And then I'm going to take B and turn it back on and turn A off. And then we should get group A, channel 3, air is on. Head needs to be on. Transmit only. Is that one firing? It is, right? No. Just this one is. Milan's like, anytime now.
Any day now.
I don't know what's going on here. All right, I'm not sure why. This is the A10, as I mentioned before, which I don't usually use as my main sender. I just happen to have that one on top of the camera, so I'm gonna switch to this one because the menu is different, and I don't know that menu. So instead of watching me figure it out, which is probably not that interesting.
I'm not watching you, you're watching me.
Why is that one not firing? This one is not firing. Oh, because it's in it. Okay. This is what happens when. Yeah, this is in A. This is in channel. Remember I just said different channels? Yeah, it was in. This is in channel 1. Once again, user error. They'll cut that one in the editing. Now it's firing. There we go. There we go. Okay. So now. Okay, this is cool. Everything's firing. All right, guys, forget that just happened. So what happened there? Let me just explain it because I know it's probably confusing, especially if you just jumped in. When I was talking about channels, I didn't go and look at the channels because I was using these with somebody else the other day, and they put the flash on channel 1. My normal channel is channel 3, as I mentioned. So what happened was that was on channel 1, so it was not firing. So it was working properly. Daniel was just not checking things because he was too busy telling jokes. Okay, so that is in B, 3B. We are in TTL. This one is in C, but it's not going to fire. And we're going to come in and make a quick shot with the softbox, chin up a little bit, right? And that's going to give us our baseline exposure, okay? And you can see with the light this close how it shapes her face. It's not as soft as the other light, but it's got a nice shape to it, right? And we can do any number of things at this point. We can actually come in and use the flash on camera as a fill. Let's see. Oh, ND filters. Okay, I'll talk about that for a second. So you can use ND filters instead of high-speed sync as well. It's just there's a few reasons why high-speed sync is better, but mostly because speed and convenience. You know, if you've got the option to use high-speed sync, it's going to be faster, but flashes that can do it are not always inexpensive. But keep in mind, because I've seen people say this before because they're just not putting all the math together, it's the same thing. Like you're still expending way more power because when you put NDs on your lens, you're still shooting f/16, you know, f/22 out of the flash. It's just that the exposure at the lens is different because you have an ND on there. So don't be tricked by that because I think sometimes that's confusing. So I'm going to bring in this reflector. We'll have Nerlon hold it because she's a reflector holding expert. And she'll be like, yeah, I'm holding the reflector. Boom, and then we can fill in a little bit, and now we've got kind of a nice more beauty / kind of fashiony shot with the small softbox. Again, different than our big old, no, there I was trying to get the thing to work. Different than this one, which is like real clean, right? This is clean and pretty. This is like bam. You know, depending on your mood and your subject's mood, you know, you can create different looks, larger light sources, more diffuse, wrap around, that kind of thing. Ah. Hello from Sweden. Oh, hey, thanks. Yes, Gavin also did a video. Many people have done a video about the ND thing. The funny thing about the NDs is that used to be the only way to do it, especially with big flash. When you were using like large flash, like a 2,000 watt second strobe, there was no, you know, there was no high speed sync. All that stuff didn't exist for the big flashes back in the day. So that's how we used to do it. Everybody did it with NDs. And then people started doing stuff like Joe McNally was one of the first ones I saw do it, where they would take like 5 or 6 small flashes and put them together to get a high-speed sync outside. Nowadays, we have things like the ProPhoto, you know, B1X or B10, which can give you high-speed sync. Lower the reflector a little bit. Yeah. It can give you high-speed sync, and it can give you the power. But right now, we're using small flash. Okay, so now I lowered the flash a little bit to give a little bit more direct, because remember, it's a small softbox. We want to make sure that we're putting it where we want it. Here we're throwing enough light onto her face to give us shape and a little boom, but we're also giving some fill with the reflector underneath. Nice and simple. Full-length shots, please. No. We're not doing full-length shots. This is portraits. There's no difference between shooting a full-length shot and as far as how light works and a portrait in this case. Okay. All right, I'm going to turn this guy on. And now we're going to use it for what they call on-access fill. So on-access because the direct, fill because that guy got his name on there. He got his name on the screwdrivers too. Philip and Phil, same guy? Mm-hmm. No, Milan's not buying it. All right. So we could just do this and it would probably be fine, right? No, it's garbage, right? 2 reasons why it's garbage. One is because this here is blocking the flash and some of it's hitting the background. Milan's perfect, of course. But also now this flash in the front has completely come in because when we're using TTL, it doesn't know which flash is the fill light and which flash is the main light, right? It's just trying to get a good exposure. So what's happening is we're getting all our light from the front and it's just giving us that blasted look. So let's think about how we're going to work this out. We want this to be our key light up here and this to be our fill light. This is in the B group, this is in the C group. So I'm going to take the C group light, and again, I'm in TTL right now, and I'm going to set the ratio. I'm going to turn it down 2 stops. Okay, that should give us a better balance. Now, we still may have this problem with the background thing going on. Yeah, we're still going to have that no matter what, which is kind of cool actually. However, what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to add this diffuser. What we should get is, there we go, nice smooth light. We've got this fill from the front to give her a sparkle, a little specularity, but it's not as punchy, let's say, as this one, right? So we've got 2 different looks here, right? This is like a little bit softer, a little bit smoother because I've got a large light source filling in the front, and then in addition to that, I've got more diffusion. And remember, diffusion handles highlights. So we've got more bright highlights here with the less diffusion, more diffused highlights with the diffusion, right? Simple as that. Let me just check these questions. Yeah, you can definitely do sports. Right. Right. The math does not work out exactly the same. Yes, when you're using high-speed sync, you use more power, but you're also using more power with the ND filters. So do your math. That it doesn't work out like that. People seem to think there's like a magic bullet. They're basically the same. There are advantages to using ND, like less wear and tear on the flash. You can use studio strobes as opposed to small flashes that you don't have to use things that have high-speed sync, but it doesn't use less power. That's actually not true. Okay. And you can also overheat the flashes. Okay, so we've got this down now. We've got 2 flashes working together. One is a fill light, one is a key light. And what's interesting is this fill light is turned down 2 stops relative to the other one, yet we're actually putting out more power here because it's further away and it's going through a larger silk. I'm going to switch everything over to manual. And I'm going to take this C light because I want to start to finesse this. So I'm going to take this C light and I'm going to move it down another 2 stops. Even though I'm putting it through this diffuser and it's already low light power here, I want to see what happens if I get it even less. I just want it to kiss her with some diffusion. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, see, I think I like that. Now my overall exposure seems a little bit down. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to turn both of them up a little bit. I'll turn this one up 3/10 and I'll turn the B light, because I can do it from here, up 3/10. One more time, here we go. Nice. Yeah. Now what we're getting is directional light, right? It's directional, but it's really creamy and smooth. We get some highlight, because we don't want to kill all your highlight. That would just look unnatural, right? We want some shine. We want the forehead, we want down the nose, the cheeks to have some shine on it. That's kind of part of what we're creating here. She has the dress that has some shine, you get a little bit of the skin tone. So we want some shine. We just don't want it to be, your highlight on the body or on an object is a reflection of the light source, right? So we want the light source to kind of fill it in, and that's what we've got here. So that's actually very nice. Does the Speedlight have a green tint? Absolutely not. If you're looking at a green tint, that's because you have a computer issue. This looks absolutely correct on my computer, which is all that matters. All right, here we go. We'll shoot a few like this because I feel like it. Typically, your camera, if you're using Speedlights that sync up with it, will tell you when the Speedlight is recycled as well, because you know how studio strobes will beep? I don't know if some Speedlights might beep, but these ones do not, as far as I know. But they do have a little, basically lightning bolt symbol that turns on inside the camera when it's ready again. So if you're doing a studio portrait, you can kind of, you know when it's ready, you don't overshoot it. Because again, they're not that powerful, and we're kind of we're working them, right? These are only 75 watt seconds, so we can't shoot like, if we're full power, they're going to burn up or use up the battery real quick. So you want to think when you're using Speedlights to shoot a little bit slower, but luckily they have, like I said, in most cases, an internal kind of monitor that will tell you it's ready again. Cool. Questions? Let's see. Late again. Uh-oh. Hard light looks more sharper. Yeah, it does actually. Because there's an increase in contrast. Exactly what you're saying. Yeah. Are there some kinds of makeup or clothing that are harder to work with? Well, I mean, you have to consider a couple of things here. So the answer is yes. But when you're a photographer, right, you're going to be in different situations. Sometimes it will be you have to light to something, and other times it'll be they should do the makeup and clothing to what you're shooting. It really depends on the project, right? If somebody comes and they've designed a dress that's all, let's say, sequins, you're going to know that sequins are very reflective, right? So we need to know that by using a larger light source that's going to reflect, remember I just said the highlight is the reflection, right? So if I'm shooting a dress with a lot of sequins, I might use like a round, larger light source so that all the sequins get lit in that way. If I use like a on-camera flash, it's going to create these little harsh glows off them that isn't going to look as good. So yeah, you're going to want to think about your light source and decide for there. Hard, I mean, it's all difficult until you've done it once. That's usually the way it is with photography. You're going to need to experience different types of things, and as you're working through them, you're going to figure it out, and then once you do, it's not really hard anymore once you understand it. But it's a matter of understanding how these things work. Fundamentals are so much more important than just, this is how you do this, because you will almost never have a job that is equal to that funky video that you watch where they were doing a certain technique. You're going to have jobs that you need to create something unique for your client, so you really want to understand the fundamentals. You can fundamentally disagree with all you want, but there's still the same amount of light. You know? I mean, if you are shooting at 2.8 with an ND on your filter, the flash is still giving out the full amount of power. There might be a marginal different amount of use of the battery because way high-speed sync works, but your flash is still shooting at the same power roughly. So, I mean, you can disagree all you want. I guarantee you it's the same amount of light that comes out of it because there's only one correct exposure. Let's just put that on the table right now because I feel like people don't really look at the big picture and they think like this. There is a exposure that is right. If you're standing somewhere and we need to expose her with this ISO and this shutter speed or whatever, it doesn't matter what you put in front of the lens. In order to achieve that exposure on your sensor, it needs a certain amount of light. That light can be produced in many different ways, right? It could be a really long exposure if you're going to adjust your shutter speed. It could be NDs and then a ton of flash power, or it could be a pulsating, weaker flash, which is what high-speed sync does. So they all use the same amount of light in the end because the exposure is exposure. But anyways, let's make a multiple light shot. we'll use a slightly bigger, because like I said, I was going to use the beauty dish, but I've changed my mind. People ask about using a larger softbox. I think we will do that, just because that's how I like to roll. So we're going to bust out the 2x3 Chimera here. Actually, I think I'm going to do like a more traditional 45-degree angle. Oh, did that on purpose. I notoriously never tighten anything down all the way. By the way, this is the magic finger. People always ask me what this is. Yes, you want one. Prepare yourself for sticker shock when you look at it, but it's worth it. Okay, so I didn't take out enough speed rings, so I wasn't planning on doing this. But I'm just going to take apart this softbox and build another one. So we'll do like a softbox building contest. Oh, I can't use that theme music. I'll get sued. All right, we didn't use the whole song. I think we're okay. Okay, so this is now a 2 foot by 3 foot Chimera Pro 2 softbox. We're going to use this, again, this is probably the largest softbox I would ever consider really using on a Speedlight consistently, because, again, the larger the box, the more power you're going to eat up. And here I am shooting a video, so I have to have lights on in here. I can't just turn the lights off, although we have done that before.
Yeah.
So sometimes you've got to do that, but we're not going to do it because, hey.
It looks like you haven't set up any HomeKit accessories.
I have not set up any HomeKit accessories. Wow. Nice. I wasn't even talking to her.
Just looking after you.
I know, she is. She's nice. All right. So we're going to set this up at a kind of a 45. When you're setting up your... There we go. When you're setting up your softbox at like this kind of 45-ish thing, you want to make sure that when you put it next to the person that the center of the box is generally, it's good to have it above their eye line. So something like that. How far away from them? As close as possible. These are the questions people always ask me. I'm looking through the camera. I see that it's in my shot slightly. I move it out. That's basically how I put the softbox in. Closer is going to be better when you want a soft light. Okay, boom. All right. Now we've got that one softbox in place. We're going to, again, start the same way. I'm going to take this flash here, which is in the C group, and I'm just going to turn it off. I'm going to go back to TTL, and we're going to take a shot. Boom. Nice. So now we've got this light shaping her face, giving that kind of three-dimensional feel that you can't see because I haven't switched the thing yet. And it's tremendously soft, right? The light is big, it's diffused, it's very, very nice. You could work like this. Using a single light is great, Yeah. I can't move the table closer because it's all plugged into a live streamer. But yes, thank you. It's like, I would have never thought to do that. It's good that you guys are here. Okay, so we've got this here. Wow, everybody's got their opinions tonight. All right. I'm going to use a little bit of a separation light. You know what we'll do? Yeah, we'll do it this way. So this is a secondary, you probably can't see me over here. Let's switch this. There we go. All right, I'm gonna put a second light back here. I'm gonna use a hard light, why not? This is in the, this was in the B group, but as we know, we were having to change all these. So I'm gonna put this into A, right, because that's C and that's B. Okay. Now this has like a round dome on it. So it's going to create kind of just a punchy light that's going to spread a little bit. I just kind of want to see what it looks like. So when you just want to experiment with something, sometimes it's a good idea just to turn off your other lights. And ooh. Okay, turning off B as well. So that should just fire that one. Yep, okay. So we're in TTL. This is going to be just a really harsh light from the back. Let's just see what it looks like. Oh, nice, okay, good. And then we're going to turn C back on. I'm going to switch to manual because we know that the other one's good. We're going to turn B back on, which is our softbox. And now we're going to get basically more of like a three-dimensional look. Once you have both lights in there, you can't see anything because I didn't switch this back. That's not bad, right? Okay, once you have that basic setup, we can then check our exposure more steadily. So we want to make sure that we're not losing any detail here, which we're not, that the light's where we kind of want. She's going to move around, so I'm not going to worry too much about the exact placement of the light. I think I'll move the front light a little bit more to the front though, because I want to make sure I catch both her eyes so we don't get, sometimes if you have a highlight in only one eye, and then you have light, like bright light from the other side, it can look a little bit out of balance. So let's just see what that looks like. I'm not normally like a catch light person, but I think it is important to make sure that you balance your exposures. See, there we go. So we got just that little bit over there. I did that just by turning the light slightly. Just adjusting it a little bit. We're getting a bit of a blowout here, but I think that's okay. Remember, this is like a metallic dress. I think people sometimes get worried about the idea that like you're going to lose detail in something metallic, but sometimes you want something that's white. You don't want to have it completely blown out through the whole thing, but you do want to have this like range so that it feels like it's actually reflecting. Right. Okay. Now you're talking about something completely different with the with the freezing action. That comes down to flash duration plus shutter speed. Well, if you guys are really interested in that kind of stuff, I can do a demo. We did that one a while back where we got Broncolor loan me a whole bunch of stuff, and we did them some martial artists, so you can really see how to freeze action. We can do that. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Don't throw hard light on the model, Daniel. Oh man, this guy must have read that book from 1975 about not using hard light. Don't throw hard light on the model. Yeah. I know they teach you that in photo school, but pick up any fashion magazine, pick up any celebrity portrait, pick up Hollywood portraits, pick up the hard light is your friend once you know how to use it. It can be beautiful, it can add shape. If you like soft light, that's fine, but don't tell people not to use hard light. That is absolutely bad advice. Yeah, but you know, for you, because I'm so nice, we'll add some soft light, which also looks nice. So, but this will be a good example of, well, let's do it where I don't catch you in a weird moment.
Oh, I know, it's nice.
Well, it's nice, but yeah. You were perfect, I just screwed up. All right, so here we have a softer light from the back. It is nice, right? It still shapes the jaw. We can see this little bit here. I mean, obviously the exposure is not the same either, but there's a difference between these two shots. One has a punchy, glamoury feel. The other one has a flatter, portraity feel. If that's what you like, that's fine. But yeah, don't tell people not to use hard light. Yeah. Huh. Huh. Yes, I'm with you. Hard light is the, yeah. If you've been afraid of hard light, you should start messing with it. It's definitely worth it. I mean, it takes a little bit to get used to it, but now we can do all kinds of stuff here, right? I still have the flash on top of my camera, and it's still telling me when they're ready, so hopefully I'm not jumping them, right? And essentially we can use this to shape our subject and create something really interesting. If you want to, again, have even more fill to keep it flatter in the front, I can turn this guy back on. This is the C guy. And again, I'm not going to use a hard light here because this would be a bad place to use a hard light. I'm going to go like this, and now we're building really elaborate. probably should have checked the exposure, but hey, you know what? That's how I roll. And now we've got a little bit more filled in. So we can still use the hard light and have that. I personally don't like that as much, to be honest. I'm more of a fan of having some shadow. I think it adds a little bit more kind of depth to the image. So when you're using hard light, you're using it for that reason, right? To create depth. You're not using it to flatten everything out. So you don't want to just have that one spot. Right. Preferred softbox. It really depends on what you are doing. If you are shooting, okay, so again, oh, nope, that's not the right one. I know we get these questions a lot, right? Like, what softbox do you prefer? If we want to be versatile photographers, we can't just prefer something. Somebody who has their name on the side of the softbox is probably telling you that's their favorite softbox, but the reality is you're going to use a softbox that's right for what you're doing. Rectangular softbox generally are going to give you more edge control. So if you're trying to get some shadow in a certain area and you want to kind of feather the softbox off in certain ways, the rectangular softbox is usually better for that. But that also has to do with size of the softbox, whether or not you're going to use a grid. Octagon softboxes, on the other hand, tend to wrap around more. So if I'm shooting with only a single light and I want it to be a little more even and I don't have the ability to boom it, an octagon is usually going to give me more of that kind of wrap around light that I can then reflect back in. So if I'm using a single light and I want a flatter, more wraparound look, I will probably lean towards an octagon. If I'm using a single light and I want something that has a little more shadow, I'm probably going to lean towards a rectangle. So there you go. So it really depends on what you're doing. An umbrella I'll use if I want it to be the ultimate and flat, right? If I just want to keep it like I'm shooting a group, or I just want to keep it really simple and want them to be able to move around, children running around, stuff like that, umbrellas, right? So there's that one, because people ask that as well too. Cool. Thanks, guys, for the reminders. Sure, if you like the video, if you can. For example, if you don't want to spill in the background. Exactly. Now, you guys are great. So this particular softbox, by the way, I really like. Some people do not like it. I'm pretty sure Seth doesn't like it. This has a flat front. In other words, it's not recessed at all, which means the spill out of this light is tremendous. And I love this for portraits because it throws the light everywhere, and it allows me to have a little bit more control than, let's say, an umbrella, but not as much kind of condensed light as you would get with one with a recessed front, like the one we were using earlier. So again, different softboxes for different things. That's why, unfortunately, I mean, I would love to tell you to just buy one light and be done for the rest of your life. But the reality is you will learn that depending on what you're doing, you're going to want to use different stuff. And I'd recommend renting things, playing around, see what works better for you, build up your style based on images that you like to create, and go from there. So this was the 3-light shot in the end, right? We've got a softbox here, 2 foot by 3 foot. I lowered it a little bit, but I know I'm hiding it on back there. 2 foot by 3 foot softbox is our key light, right? It's coming across. Let me do this so you guys can see. Right? It's coming across here and giving her shape to her face. We've got the light, the hard light from the back, which is punchy. It is a little bit diffused because I have a dome on it. And then I actually added this light in the front here, which I don't, the fill light in the front, which I don't have on in this shot I'm showing. So let's take one more shot here. I've twisted this slightly so we have a little bit more wrap around her face. Again, if I was using an octagon, I probably wouldn't have to do this. It would just be that big, right? So here, I didn't really like when we had this because I think it was too much fill. So what I'm actually going to do is take this guy here. This is my C light, and I'm going to turn it down 2 stops. Good. All right. Let's just do one shot before we do it to make sure I like it. Yeah, there we go. So now we've got this kind of blazing highlight, which I like. It's a little bit of a hard light. Now, again, I like that look. If you don't like it, you know, you can certainly soften that light from the back. I think I will reduce the exposure a little bit though. That's the A light. You know, and just like your studio strobes, with the more modern ones with the built-in radios, you can adjust all the power with the Speedlights locally. So I'm going to turn that down to stop. Again, I'm just eyeballing it based on what I like. There we go. So now what we've got is a 3-light shot here. Let me tighten up my focus. Good. Okay. So now, let's look at this shot. Crispy. All right. We've got one light here. This is our key, right? This is shaping the face, giving the overall exposure on the face. It's dropping down a little bit into shadow around her chin and stuff to give that really nice highlight. I'm emphasizing the fact that she has awesome makeup done by Troy, who disappeared. He's hiding. He made it shiny stuff. I'm working with that, right? Because we had that question before about the makeup. I'm working with that nice shine, not shiny like a terrible, like, oh my God, she's not sweaty, but shiny is like a glow, right? We're giving it that beautiful glow. Then I've got this light coming from the back. That is that more boom in your face hard. That's giving her that cutout and giving it a little bit more glamour. That's our backlight, right? That's a small light source. It's hard. It's a little bit diffuse. And then in the front, I'm just filling in so that we don't get too dark under like her chin and stuff. That gives her a little bit more room to move around. If I didn't do that, then it could be in certain poses that she might have too much shadow in certain areas, and then we might be like, oh man, that's a bummer. So this way we've got what is essentially a really controlled shot that's got some depth and color. It's got some hardness from back here to show some flesh, skin tone, the texture of the flesh, which I think people should look like people and not like mannequins. So I like that. If you don't, then you can use a soft light. That will help. But ideally, we're creating something that looks like a portrait, looks like the person, it feels real good, they have some room to move around, and we're just using 3 Speedlights that I could easily fit into my camera bag. So, let's see. Awesome, awesome, awesome. LSD or pot? No, I don't think so. The smaller one, that was a Chimera extra small, Super Pro. Yeah, thanks everybody in the chat that's been helping out and all that. By myself here answering the questions. You guys are great. Nurlan is Nurls. On Instagram. I would say she's Nurlan on Instagram, which she's not, but you would never be able to spell it correctly. So she's Nurls. Check her out. Troy Edwards Style, right? Yep. Is our makeup artist. I'm Daniel Norton. If you have any more questions, guys, go ahead and put them in the comments below once the video ends. If you want to see more stuff, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Thank you so much. And if I could figure out how to do an end screen, I would do it. Thanks for watching. Here we go. Nope. Why is it so small? All right. Stand by. I have a terrible end screen. Okay, there we go. And then let me kill the audio. Boom.